we look at the best of the best and we bring them up. They work at the African Union Commission, at UN. That is to increase their employability skills.
Our work is to make sure that the Gateway strategy will help. The gender strategy will help to make sure that we trickle down until we reach the grassroots level, because that is where it is important. When you see women in rural areas where we need leadership at that level, in the agriculture sector, and they are there, they know, they have the knowledge.
Majority of cross-border traders are women. So the economy of Africa really rests on the shoulders of those women.
As the African Union Commission recently, and just one of the initiatives of trying to ensure that we will achieve that decade is the African Union Women and Youth Financial and Economic Inclusion Initiative 2030.
We need more women that know how we manage big funds, not the small that we are saying, micro. African women are at the macro, nothing to do with micro. We are at the macro level. So we need to think big.
I have the great honor and privilege to invite His Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency, the floor is yours. Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, President Mohammed Ould, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, outgoing Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished ministers, ambassadors, diplomats, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ethiopia, the cradle of Pan-Africanism and a proud champion of African unity and freedom. It is an honor to stand before you today as we reflect on the immense potential we hold, not just as individual nations, but as a united and dynamic continent. In a world marked by rapid change and multiple challenges, we find ourselves at a crossroads of uncertainty and opportunity. This moment calls upon us to strengthen our collective resolve, embrace resilience, and foster unity across Africa. The theme for this year's assembly calls on us to heal the scars of historical injustice and overcome lingering trauma that has long hindered our progress. The demand for reparations is not about charity or financial aid. It is a call for justice. It seeks to restore the dignity of millions and heal the deep scars of poverty, inequality, and discrimination. It demands an end to the systematic exploitation of our wealth resources, and opportunities. It also calls for a transformative process that acknowledges past harms and takes bold steps to right the wrongs caused upon us, upon society across the continent. Thank you. Thank you. Most importantly, the call for reparations requires not just words, but concrete actions to affirm the equal worth of every human being. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, to achieve lasting peace, justice, and prosperity, we must rise above the geopolitical tensions and the historical divisions imposed upon us by colonial borders. By fostering solidarity among all of our nations and embracing a shared destiny, we can pool our resources and talents to unlock our continent's full potential. Africa's cultural, ethnic, and linguistic diversity is a source of pride and strength upon which we must build inclusive governance and equitable development. Conflict resolution, diplomacy, and peace building must remain at the heart of our efforts. By championing African solutions to African challenges, we can secure lasting peace and stability. Let us celebrate our achievements in politics, science, economics, and arts. Strategic initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area give us the tools to boost intra-Africa trade, reduce external dependency, and achieve self-reliance. With Africa's large and dynamic use, abundant natural resources, and growing technological innovations, we have all the means to ensure sustainable growth. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, offers unprecedented opportunities to transform our economies and societies. By collaborating in AI, fintech, renewable energy, and mobile technology, we can address shared challenges such as climate change, infrastructure gaps, and public health crisis. Africa's rich and diverse data sets are essential for training robust and inclusive AI models. This highlights the importance of African representation in shaping future technologies. However, as we embrace these advancements, it's essential to protect our data sovereignty, prevent digital exploitation, and develop homegrown AI solutions that reflect African values and contexts. As our data sets grow, so must our capacity to harness them for local and global good. When used responsibly, AI can be a powerful tool in conflict prevention, transparent governance, and inclusive development. Africa must actively participate in the global technology race to ensure we are competitive players in the evolving digital landscape, while also ensuring we benefit equitably from this technological revolution. Furthermore, Africa's voice on global issues must grow stronger, ensuring that we have a say in shaping governance frameworks and other much-needed reforms in the global order. By empowering grassroots movements, youth networks, and educational programs focused on digital literacy and technological innovation, we can inspire the next generation. This will ensure Africa stands not just as a beneficiary of a global advancement, but as a key contributor in shaping the future of humanity. Excellencies, the opportunities before us are immense. Ethiopia is determined to prosper, guided by a vision of vibrant democracy, sustainable economic growth, rich cultural heritage, social progress, and a deep commitment to environmental regeneration. To realize this goal, we have laid out a pragmatic roadmap rooted in the transformative principles of Maddamar. Maddamar, an Amharic term loosely translated as synergy, is our guiding philosophy. It is a homegrown ideology that promotes prosperity, unity, sovereignty, security, and national dignity. At its core, Maddamar encourages social and economic advancement, celebrates diversity, and nurtures a spirit of community grounded in Ethiopia's rich culture, spirituality, and values. Reflecting on the progress of the past 5 years and building on the vision of Maddamar, Ethiopia has made remarkable strides. Despite inheriting a nation deeply divided along ethnic lines, burdened by substantial debt, and facing numerous internal challenges, we have moved forward with determination. At the same time, we navigated a complex and ever-changing regional and international landscape. Yet, through resilience and cooperation, we continue to move closer to the realization of our shared vision of prosperity. Our achievements speak for themselves. Allow me to share a few highlights. We have reformed our political system, transforming into an inclusive multi-party framework that reflects the diversity of our nation. To deepen these reforms and foster cohesion, reconciliation, and peace, we are undertaking a national dialogue. On the economic front, we have built a resilient and diverse economy. Over the past 5 years, we have doubled our cultivated land, increasing crop production to nearly 700 million quintals, with the wheat accounting for 40% of this total. These efforts have strengthened food security and driven rural development. Today, Ethiopia is the largest wheat producer in Africa. Thank you. Through collective efforts, we have reduced external debt by over 50%, double both GDP and GDP per capita, and tripled government revenue in 5 years, with an 8.1% growth reported in the most recent fiscal year. Across the country, our major cities are evolving into dynamic, culturally rich, and sustainable hubs. In education, we have established 40,000 kindergartens and primary schools to boost early childhood education. Additionally, we have launched a program to train 5 million coders to strengthen our digital economy. Furthermore, we strive to honor our heritage by restoring national sites, developing tourist destinations, and reclaiming cultural artifacts, fulfilling our duty as the guardians of our nation's treasures. These accomplishments reflect the unwavering spirit and resilience of the Ethiopian people and underscore our firm commitment to advancing Ethiopia's future. With its focus on unity, cooperation, innovation, and shared progress, Maddamar can serve as a guiding framework for our Pan-African agenda. By embracing its principles, we can forge a path toward a more just, equitable, and prosperous future for all Africans. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us march forward with determination, harnessing the limitless potential of our continent and its people. The time is now to claim our future, build a legacy of equality and prosperity, and secure dignity for all. Let us be the generation that unites the continent and our diaspora in a shared vision of justice, prosperity, and peace. To conclude, I thank our outgoing chairperson, President Mohammed Ould, for his leadership and representing our organization on the global stage. Allow me to also warmly congratulate our newly chairperson, President Joao Lorenzo, and wish him success during his tenure. I would also like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to His Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat for his exemplary leadership as chairperson of the African Union Commission over the past 8 years. Throughout his tenure, His Excellency Moussa Faki has shown unwavering commitment to Africa's development, peace, and integration, significantly strengthening the African Union's role in addressing the continent's challenge. I also extend my sincere thanks to him for being a steadfast friend of Ethiopia, supporting us not only during our times of success, but also in our moments of difficulty. Thank you, my brother. As we bid farewell to His Excellency Moussa Faki, it is with great pleasure that I extend a warm welcome to our incoming chairperson of the African Union Commission here in Ethiopia. I am confident that under his leadership, we will continue to make great strides toward achieving our collective goals. I wish him every success during his mandate. Thank you for your attention, and I wish us all a fruitful summit. God bless Ethiopia. God bless Africa. I thank you.
And now allow me to invite with great honor and pleasure His Excellency Moussa Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency.
It is with both a great honor and a great pleasure that I'm addressing myself to you for the last time in my capacity as the chairperson of the African Union Commission. Since we are at the beginning of 2025, I want to present to you, Excellencies, to your families and your peoples, on behalf of the African Union, my best wishes for health, prosperity, and success. I would like also to express my sincere gratitude to the chairman with whom I have worked successively over the past 8 years. I'm here referring in the order of their chairmanship: Alpha Conde, Paul Kagame, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Cyril Ramaphosa, Antoine Felix Tshisekedi, Macky Sall, Azali Assoumani, and Mohamed Ould Sheikh Al-Ghazouani. At this moment of remembrance, I cannot forget President Idris Deby Itno. May his soul rest in peace, who, as a convinced Pan-Africanist, had the initiative presenting my candidature to head the commission, and who invested himself unstintingly for such a destiny for me. His tragic death was my most atrocious pain of these 2 terms. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 8 years have elapsed since my election at the end of January 2017 as chairperson of the African Union Commission. At this moment, loaded with history, meanings, and symbols, I would like to fulfill the moral duty of presenting to you the broad outlines of the outcome of these 2 terms. Thanks to this journey, I have deeply imbued myself with both what makes the greatness and the influence of our continent, of our continental organization, as well as the various constraints and limitations that have hindered the rhythm of our pace. I have crisscrossed this beautiful and fantastic continent. I feel deeply proud, having visited at least once all the 55 member states of our union. The opportunity that this moment affords is historical and unique. I will try to fulfill the dual obligation of reporting and also raising some questions about some issues, being well aware that we must not absolutely abuse of your precious time. A consolidated report of our achievements and an annual report have been distributed to you in accordance with our regulations. Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the rapid and intense geopolitical upheavals that have characterized the international context during my 2 terms of office have both violent and destabilizing manifestations. The sudden deterioration of the health situation following the outbreak of COVID-19 was unfortunately accompanied by major shocks and profound economic and diplomatic turbulence. For Africa, this resulted in an increase in the debt burden, a decline in public and private investment flows, violence and the prevalence of some African conflicts, the collapse of Pan-Africanism and the chains of African solidarity, manifestations of the obsolescence of African institutions, external appetites in Africa, obvious deficiencies in governance and leadership in Africa and even in the world, and the crisis of multilateralism after the Second World War, and so on, and so on. The Russia-Ukraine war, which began in February 2022, further darkened this picture, announcing a global geopolitical reconfiguration. A split emerged that resurrected a form of bipolarity, which in political imaginations brings to mind the theoretically outdated reality of the Cold War. Deep uncertainties about the sustainability of peace and international cooperation have poisoned the minds, darkened the conscience, and reinforced the pessimism, selfishness, and mercantile pragmatism. The consequences of this war deeply affected Africa, which imported most of its cereal consumption and agricultural inputs from these 2 countries, that is Russia and Ukraine. The specter of food and health insecurity hung over many of our countries, many of which continue to suffer from their structural fragilities. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, in the Middle East, the brotherly people of Palestine suffered and continues to suffer one of the worst injustices in the history of mankind, the horrible and unjust war which completely destroyed everything in Gaza and Palestine, particularly in Gaza, to deprive this people of its fundamental rights to independence, peace, existence, and to life in an indescribable shame for the whole of mankind. In spite of all this, these valiant Palestinian people remained stoic, and the African Union remained firmly by the side of the Palestinian people. I want to express to our brother Abu Mazen Mahmoud Ramadan our solidarity. This apocalyptic landscape that Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and its population, in particularly after more than a year of war, destroying all forms of life and property, continues to unfold in almost total silence of the powers of the world, except for the call by some for the systematic deportation of Palestinians from their lands. It is really adding insult to injury. This unprecedented tragedy weighs heavily despite the ceasefire and the release of hostages and prisoners facilitated by Qatar, Egypt, and the USA on the universal conscience and deeply questions our humanity. The stranglehold of increased, stifling, dehumanized globalization does not leave Africa outside the hegemonic struggles that are taking place far from its land. On the contrary, the continent is suffering from the excesses and fragmentations reflected in proximity conflicts, barely veiled support from external powers from the warring parties on the continent, the expansion of terrorism and violent extremism, the continuation of the devastating war in the Sudan, in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, the divisions of Libya, whose reconciliation charter was signed and adopted yesterday, and I would like to congratulate you, President Sassou Nguesso. Tensions of all kinds in the Sahel, in the Lake Chad Basin, in the Gulf of Guinea, in Mozambique, in the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region are another part of the unsmoldering string of African crises. The flow of political, economic, environmental refugees and other internally displaced persons is exacerbating the already fragile security, food, and health situation in many member states. It is this seriously degraded global and regional context that we have been facing over the past 8 years of the development of our action. Excellency, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, ladies and gentlemen, the institutional reform of our Union, which began in 2017, aimed at establishing the optimal condition to guarantee the efficient pursuit of the programs included in our strategic doctrinal guiding compass Agenda 2063 for the purpose of better resistance to the challenges that were identified. In this regard, the reconfiguration of the leadership, a staff performance evaluation process, closer cooperative relationship between the African Union and the regional economic communities and the regional mechanisms enacted by a new protocol, the institutionalization of a coordination summit dedicated to integration, the establishment of the technical groups R10 and N15, responsible to ensuring the quality of human resources recruited and compliance with the golden rules of budgetary, financial, and accounting management principles of the African Union have been the salient features of this reform. And but is without any complacency, we'll have a new institutional map of the Union. I'm here stressing three of these organs: the Pan-African Parliament, the Peace and Security Council, and the Permanent Representatives Committee. The overall movement of the reform, with its shadows and lights, confirms its relevance and its necessary progressive nature to be deployed over the long term. It is a requirement for the perpetual adaptation of the structures of our Union to the developments that characterize the world. I would like to thank Presidents Paul Kagame and President William Ruto for their remarkable efforts to move this reform forward.
I will now have the honor to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver his statement.
Excellencies, the partnership between the African Union and the United Nations has never been stronger. Together, we see an Africa booming with hope and possibility. You have a booming, enterprising population, including the largest number of young people in the world. The African continental free trade is poised to turbocharge the region's economy, and calls to address the legacies of colonialism and slavery are growing louder, as reflected in your theme this year, and as reflected in the leadership of so many passionate voices for the liberation of Africa, such as the great Dr. Sam Nujoma of Namibia, whose life we celebrate and whose loss we mourn. The world must never forget that Africa is the victim of two colossal and compounded injustices. First, the profound impact of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. The roots stretch back centuries, and the bitter fruit continues to affect Africans and people of African descent to this day. Decolonization alone in itself was not a panacea. Political independence did not free countries from structures based on exploitation and decades of economic, social, and institutional underinvestment. It is high time for reparatory justice frameworks to be put in place. Second, Africa was under colonial domination when today's multilateral system was created, and that injustice endures. Look no further than the United Nations Security Council. There is no excuse that Africa still lacks permanent representation in the 21st century. I will keep working with the African Union and all member states to ensure the representation Africa needs and the justice you deserve, including with 2 permanent members of the Security Council. And we will keep pressing together for an international financial architecture that is no longer outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. Correcting age-old injustices is essential to address here and now challenges. And the good news is that we have many of the solutions we need. Last year, you helped drive that effort at the United Nations with the Pact for the Future. And I thank Africa for its support that was vital to approve the Pact. Our task now is to make those commitments a reality. South Africa's G20 chairmanship could not come at a better time. Let me point to 4 areas for action. First, we must push for peace, security, and alleviating appalling levels of human suffering. Sudan is being torn apart before our eyes and is now home to the world's largest displacement crisis and famine. As we near the holy months of Ramadan, it is time for an immediate cessation of hostilities. And the international community must come together to stop the flow of weapons and the bankrolling of bloodshed. In the Democratic Republic of the Congolese people have been suffering yet again from a brutal cycle of violence. And the fighting that is raging in South Kivu as a result of the continuation of the M23 offensive threatens to push the entire region over the precipice. Regional escalation must be avoided at all costs. There is no military solution. The deadlock must end the dialogue must begin, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC must be respected. The conclusions of the recent joint EAC-SADC summit offer a way forward, with a renewed call for an immediate ceasefire and new momentum for regional efforts based on the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Now is the time for swift implementation. And you can count on the continued support of the United Nations, including MONUSCO. In the Sahel, the clear and present threat of terrorism is undermining peace, security, and sustainable development. And in Somalia, we are urging predictable funding for the African Union support and stabilization mission, and I hope that our voice will be heard by the Security Council. And as we gather here in Africa, I know all our minds are also very much on Gaza. A resumption of hostilities must be avoided at all costs. The Palestinian people have suffered too much. I welcome efforts by the parties to abide by the ceasefire agreement and urge action for a permanent ceasefire and the release of all hostages. Peace is possible in the Middle East, and that starts with tangible, irreversible, and permanent progress towards the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. Excellencies, on all fronts, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the African Union to advance security, stability, human rights, and the rule of law. Excellencies, second, we must keep working together to deliver the AU 2063 agenda and the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and drive action on finance. African countries pay up to 8 times more to borrow than developed countries, and 20 are in or at risk of debt distress. The Pact for the Future supports an international financial architecture reform to reflect today's economy, ensuring fair representation and urging effective action on debt relief. And I will stand with Africa as a matter of justice and to right the historic wrongs. Excellencies, third, the climate crisis. Climate disasters are tearing across Africa, destroying lives, upending livelihoods, devastating economies, and inflaming conflict. At the same time, the renewables revolution is unstoppable, and Africa is poised to become a global clean energy powerhouse. Yet, today, Africa receives just 2% of global renewables investment. Realizing Africa's potential requires access to affordable finance, including by implementing the COP29 finance decision fully and on time, and supporting development of a roadmap to realize $1.3 trillion a year. Excellencies, Africa has contributed little to the climate crisis, yet is paying the price with record droughts, floods, and heat. Climate justice requires a massive investment in adaptation, with the international community bearing an enormous responsibility. Developed countries must double adaptation finance, and countries must significantly boost the Loss and Damage Fund. Allow me a note. When the Loss and Damage Fund was created, the pledging conference that took place has allowed for an amount that is equivalent at the highest contract for a basketball player in the United States. It is absolutely necessary to make the Loss and Damage Fund an effective instrument to support developing countries in adaptation. And we also need justice. when it comes to your abundant critical minerals. Too often, your countries are plundered, bound to the bottom of value chains as others grow rich on your resources. The work of the United Nations Panel on Critical Energy Transition Minerals is designed to help embed justice, sustainability, and human rights across the value chain. Africa's minerals must benefit Africa's people.
I have the honor to invite His Excellency, Mohammed Ould Sheikh Al-Ghazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania and Chairperson of the African Union, to deliver his opening remarks. Excellency.
I wish to extend my thanks to the government and the people of Ethiopia for the efforts made to hold this summit. We thank them for the support and the hospitality accorded to us in this beautiful city of Addis Ababa, which saw the establishment of our organization as inspired by the founding fathers, to have an Africa that is peaceful and united. I'm very happy to reiterate my thanks to my brothers, the presidents of the member states of the African Union, for the honor bestowed in me for chairing this organization. I thank them for their continued support throughout my mandate. I also extend my thanks to the presidents of countries and who are with us to attend this important meeting at the beginning of 2025. This year raises a number of questions. Thank you, Excellencies, heads of government. My chairmanship of the African Union has taken place at an international period that is highly sensitive. This also coincided by our adoption of the second decade plan within the framework of Agenda 2063. It represents a plan for development for member states and the regional economic communities and the various organs of the African Union. By adopting this decade plan, we can see our solid commitment to meet the aspirations of our peoples to have the Africa that we all want, in spite of the obstacles and in spite of all the challenges. And these challenges are tremendous. When I became the chairperson of the African Union, I was fully aware of the volume of the commitment and the responsibility. Today, our world is witnessing various crises. These are where we have more areas of conflict, and tensions have jeopardized relations between countries. They have also jeopardized the values on which the world system has been established since the Second World War. After a particular period of the development of international organizations and our belief in a more just world, the references went back and hopes collapsed. And now there is a revision of the international system in a way and that the contours are not clear. For a number of years, unfortunately, bloodshed continues. Many people found themselves in difficult humanitarian situations. The world has witnessed a level of violence unprecedented since the Second World War. Palestine is what Palestine is facing is a good example of this. This global situation is made more complex and complicated by the wars in Africa. These crises global and continental, have had a negative impact on the efforts of development in our continent, where there are tremendous challenges such as poverty, unemployment, and the weakness of health systems and the weak economic structures, in addition to the impact of climate change, the dissemination of terrorism. All of this is having an impact on peace and security. It is destroying the social fabric of our communities. In my previous speech, I committed myself to work on these challenges. And I worked during my term on respecting the rules and regulations of the African Union. All of this in full harmony with the AU Commission and the regional economic communities and the regional organs. Our aim was to consolidate the efforts of peace and to reach peace on the basis of dialogue by supporting the valuable efforts made by Excellency Ngasso, President Ngasso, at the head of the African High-Level Committee on Libya. I also continued work with President Paul Kagame and President Tshisekedi to deal with the situation in Eastern DRC. In 2024, Mauritania hosted the third meeting to consolidate the peace initiative in Sudan. We also met General Al-Burhan on the 13th and the 14th of January 2025, and the aim was to end the hostilities in Sudan and to protect its peoples and territories. In spite of the efforts made by the Union and the regional economic communities and the member states, the establishment of comprehensive peace in our continent remains to be achieved. Therefore, I call for the implementation of the decisions made by the Malabo decisions in 2022 on the basis of the work of the PSC. And this can be done at 4 levels: harmonization, financial sustainability. All of this will meet the ongoing security challenges. All of this will enable us the possibility to explore more effective solutions to achieve peace and security. We need to identify the appropriate mechanisms that should enable us to settle the challenges of peace and security. In this context, we need the efforts of each one of us as part of a collective effort in order to meet these challenges. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we gave a great deal of attention to the agenda of development during our term. We endeavored to mobilize resources by organizing or participating in a number of meetings. We organized with His Excellency Samuel Ruto in the Nairobi summit to support the resource mobilization. We consolidated this with our work with President Hassan Ouattara on the occasion of the economic summit held in Abidjan. This represented a landmark in resource mobilization for our organization. The efforts of support have led to renewing the mobilization of resources. We also participated in the work of mobilize more resources from Korea for the benefit of development.
Now I have the honor to welcome His Excellency João Manuel Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, the new chairperson of the African Union, for the handover ceremony in the High Table. You are welcome, Your Excellency.